of. Again, that Tehillim is said for the Refuah Shalema of Miriam Melser, and again, her name is Miriam Bas Aina Pesya Yocheved. Today's talk should be a zechus for her Refuah Shalema.
Amen. Okay, I'm Rivky Silver, and here we are joining together in our grief. We are all reeling from this devastating loss of Liel. And as we're together, we're asking ourselves, how? How can we go forward? How can we cope with this loss coming after so many previous losses? How can we process this? How do we cope with tragedy and loss? And I want to also thank Meaningful Minute for giving us the opportunity to come together and to discuss this very important topic. And be sure to download the app, because there'll be many continuing conversations and content to help and to continue the conversation. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, great. So we're very honored to have Zahava Farbman with us today. And basically the structure of tonight is Zahava is going to be talking for about 15 minutes, again, on our topic, dealing with crisis and loss. This is a Q&A. So after her presentation, Rivky and I are going to just get started, each with our own question, because it's a wonderful opportunity for us really to, of course, ask our own questions and guide the conversation. But we know that there are so many of you that have questions. I heard there are 400 people at minimum who are on tonight. So
it looks like almost 1,000 now, Alex.
Okay, 1,000. So this is your opportunity. Obviously, we can't answer 1,000 questions, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will try to get to a bunch of them. And we also have had a number of people who have emailed us their questions as well. So clearly, we as Klal Yisrael really are needing this opportunity to try to process together. So again, honored to have Zahava Farbman. She is an MSW for over 25 years in the field of crisis and grief counseling. She is a veteran, but I believe it's traumatologist, that if I pronounce that correctly. But someone who has experienced both locally, nationally, and internationally in crisis intervention, trauma, bereavement, healing. So without further ado, Zahava.
Thank you so much, Rivky and Alex, and thank you so much, Meaningful Minute, for so quickly putting this together. You're always really in the spotlight of anything that Klal Yisrael needs. It's really just unbelievable. And we're all reeling still in the shock of what's gone on. I just came from Great Neck speaking to the Great Neck girls after, Tag and Sternberg and the different, different ripple effects. And one of the girls asked me a question, and I was trying to answer her, basically saying, it's only been a day. And I was like, what day is it? What day is it? It's Monday? Like, it's only Monday? This has been going on, like, really, like, I couldn't even wrap my head around the fact that it's only Monday, and this has been going on only since Moshe Shabbos. I feel like we've been, at for weeks already, and how much pain, how much grief, how many different emotions that we as a community have been going through together, since Moshe Shabbos. Since, those of us who live in Woodmere, since those sirens that we heard Motzei Shabbos. And I think, first of all, together is the operative word. We just lit those Hanukkah candles, one by one, and we finally had the beautiful menorah all fully lit, those 8 candles together. And I feel like, we as a community at times, shine so bright together. And I feel like the menorah has been, the candles, the light has been taken from us so abruptly and thrown us into the darkness of Teves. And the darkness has surrounded us, has engulfed us so quickly into Teves, the darkest month of the year. But I think for a few minutes, I would like to think about how we're going to emerge from the darkness together, because that's the goal. However, focusing on the fact that we need to do this minute by minute, actually no pun intended. That's something that I, talk about with people all the time, minute by minute. And that right now it's really about the pain. It's really about the pain. I've spoken to countless people over the last 2 days who are just feel suffocated by the pain, just feel debilitated by the pain, just feel like they've been hit by the biggest ton of bricks and they can't move and they can't breathe, and they're literally just surrounded by that darkness of Zahavas. So we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna get us and our children through the pain, not around it, not on top of it, not underneath it, but through the pain, but yet eventually to come out and find the light again. So I would like to, spend the next 10, 15 minutes talking about something. Those of you who have heard me speak before, may recognize what I'm going to say. And I toyed with saying something different, but I really do honestly feel that at a time like this, it is the most essential, the most essential piece that I can leave you with, both for yourselves and for your children. And then I do believe that as the questions are asked, more additional information I will be able to give you with. But the first and most essential thing that I can give for you and for your children is that there is no right way and there is no wrong way to do this. There's no right way and there's no wrong way to experience the loss, the very sudden traumatic loss of a 16-year-old girl, especially one for those of us, for you or for your children who knew her and who loved her. There's no right way and there's no wrong way to feel, to think, to cope, to react to such a sudden traumatic loss. Okay, Viktor Frankl, who was a famous psychiatrist, he himself lived through Auschwitz. He coined the phrase, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is totally normal. Again, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is totally normal, which means that especially at this early stage, at this immediate aftermath where we're at now, anything goes. Of course, there are red flags, and of course, there's healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms. But outside of that, anything goes. And when I speak to the children, I tell them, this is not like when you're taking a test and you get the wrong answer and someone says, no, this is the wrong answer. Anything goes. Okay, and I give them examples from the Torah. There are stories that, totally validate that, Hashem gives us permission, space, and opportunity to do this our way. And I tell the children, again, I just now came from Great Neck and I looked out at a beautiful group of girls and I said, you all look, different on the outside. Kal v'chomer, a million times, you're so different on the inside. Different personalities, different emotional makeups, different, experiences that you are going through or have been through in your life, different like suitcases, right? The baggage that we carry through in our lives that make us go through this in our own way. And it's so important not to compare yourself one to the other. There are some people that may need to cry. There are some people that may need to talk. There are some people that may need to distract themselves. There are some people that may need to, write stories or do projects. There may be some people that, may need to be angry or feel guilty or, feel confused or feel happy that, she's in a better place in Shemayim there, or do Tehillim or learn something or, go running, whatever it is. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. And it's so, important not to compare yourself one to the other. And then there are those people who are, of course, sad that something like this may have happened, but they're not overly emotional or they're not the type to cry, and they shouldn't be feeling guilty about that either. So validation validation is absolutely the most important thing that you can and should be doing for your children right now. And there should be nothing said like, you shouldn't be sad, or you shouldn't be scared, or, you're going to feel better, or just try to be present with exactly where they are and not to move them from where they are. And I just want to share quickly the story that I use the most when I talk about some of the feelings that we can be going through right now at this time, going through or immediately following any crisis, trauma, or tragedy. People ask me all the time, Zahava, how do you do what you do? And, the answer is, I don't know. It's all Hashem. I have no idea. But my coping mechanism is the Torah. For me, the Torah is not just a rule book. It's not just a history book. It's the first psychology book. And a great passion of mine is finding places in the Torah where, we find those places of validation, or we look to, our role models and see how they, went through situations. So again, the story that I use a lot as validation for many of the feelings that we may be going through right now is Sarah Imeni, when she died right after the Akedah. Because Sarah was a person who went through many challenges, right? She was kidnapped twice. She went through infertility. She had a child who went off the derech. She, had to be wandering through the desert with her husband, right? She went through a lot. But yet Rashi says about her, Kulam Shavim Latova. She saw everything as if it was for the best, right? I'm a mom and I try very hard to teach my kids, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. But she really lived it, okay? So how is it then that she died when she heard about Akedas Yitzchak? What happened? The angel came and was like, lady, do you know what's going on up at that mountain? And she died. So what's up with that? So there are many different mefarshim that speak to the reason how this could happen, and they really go towards the emotions that we can be feeling while going through or immediately following any crisis, trauma, or tragedy. And we're going to start with the Nitziv, who says that Sarah died from shock. From shock. Who here is not still in shock? Who here was not in shock yesterday morning hearing of Liel's passing? Who here was not in shock, Motzei Shabbos, hearing about this accident of a car full of girls coming home from a wonderful Stern Break reunion? And what the Nitziv is telling us is that, what the Nitziv is validating for us, is that shock is a tremendous piece of the tragedy. And we know that there are secular studies that show that our brain takes a lot longer to process when something shocking happens. When a person dies, God forbid, after a long illness, it's sad and shocking at the end, but we have a little bit of a preparation that something like this might happen. Okay, so shock is tremendously validated. Rav Akiva Eger and the Sfas Emes have a discussion, and one of them says that Sarah died from sadness. This is a mother who was in grief, and she cried out 6 cries of grief. And those are the 6 shouts of the shofar that we are required to hear midoraisa. We're allowed to be sad. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to express our emotions. The other one says that she died because she was so happy. And her neshama was so connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that she knew this was Ratzon Hashem. And her neshama just was so overwhelmed and left her. We know that this was from Hashem. We know that Hashem loves us. We know that Hashem loves Liel and her family and all the other girls in the car. And we know that Hashem only does for the best and never does anything to hurt us. But yes, this is difficult and upsetting, and we don't understand. And I always tell myself personally, Hashem, I understand that I don't understand, but I know you love me, and I know whatever is going on is for the best. So just give me the strength to get through this. And that is a very powerful prayer. And the fact that there is both the happy and sad teaches us a very important lesson. One of the most important lessons in going through a crisis, trauma, or tragedy, both on the side of trauma and on the side of emunah. And that is, our heart is a muscle and is able to expand and hold happy and sad at the same time. Which means we don't have to give up our sadness, our loss, our void in our heart over losing Liel in order to have simcha in our life, in order to have happiness, in order to go on. And this is a very important thing for our children. We need to go on with our life. That's what Hashem wants for us. Bishvili nivrach olam. A shvil is a pathway. And we're going to go on with our life with simcha, with emunah, taking Liel with us. We can have both, the sad and the happy, because our heart is a muscle and is able to expand and hold happy and sad. And then the tip also says that Sarah died because she was alone. Avram, Yitzchak, Eliezer, they were going up on that mountain together. They may not have been talking about their experiences, but they were together in their experiences. Sarah was all alone. Your children need to know they're not alone, even if they're not talking with you about it all the time. But the lines of communication are wide open. They may think you don't understand. I lost my good friend. You don't know what that means. You're right. I don't. But I could sit next to you and hold your hand while you cry. And then there's fear. And outside of sadness, fear is the most normal reaction to this tragedy, both for our children and for ourselves. Because let's face it, this is a parent's worst nightmare. And we must be in touch with our own feelings, not just taking care of our children, but taking care of ourselves. Not at the expense of our children, not projecting on our children, not fully in front of our children, although 100% crying with our children. It's important not to get hysterical and fall apart in front of our children, but definitely crying with our children. But yes, taking care of our own emotions is absolutely essential, but recognizing the fear. The Rivky, a 13th century commentator, speaks about Yitzchak Avinu while he was sitting on the Akedah. He was trembling so much that he lost his neshama. But he was koneh the midah of pachad. He accepted upon himself that fear. And what did he do with it? He channeled it into the midah of gevurah, of strength, of resilience. Because we have a choice. We can sit on the couch and we can tremble in fear, or we can channel it into strength and into resilience. We can take our negative emotions and thoughts and we can let them stew, or we can channel them into positive thoughts, positive feelings, positive actions. And we can teach our children to do the same. And those are just some of the many emotions that we can be feeling and our children can be feeling. And I'm just going to end with something that Meaningful Minute has helped to bring to the world. Something that I noticed in Liel's name when I was speaking in TAG. I have a thing with names. And right before I got up to speak, I noticed in her Hebrew name, I was just looking at something with her name and a pasuk. And I noticed that her name is Liel. Liel, to me, Hashem. And I noticed that the first letter of her name is a lamed, and the last letter of her name is a lamed. And the lamed is the tallest letter, as if it's reaching up to Hashem. And I noticed that if you look at her name as a whole, with those lameds, it kind of looks like a big flame, like a bonfire. And if we think about who Liel was, and I've heard so much about her the last couple of days, she was a flame. Her simchas l'chaim, and how she made everybody feel like her best friend, and her positive attitude, and how she really danced. One girl told me in tag how right before she got into that car, she called this other girl over and she says, "Come dance with me. Let's dance in the rain." That's how she went into the car dancing. And I just looked at her name and I just felt that she was that candle. She was that menorah, bringing us closer to Hashem, Liel. And if we're able to incorporate who she was into our life, into our children's life, that we absolutely will be able to keep the light of the menorah with us, and that it will bring us closer to Hashem, and hopefully ultimately one step closer to Mashiach. So I have so much more to say, but that is the end of my formal, words, and I hope that more will come out in my answers to your many, many, many questions. So let's start with that.
Thank you so much, Zahava.
Wow, Zahava,
I feel like we need like some breathing just to sort of process this before we get into the questions. But I would just like to start off with one piece tying back into what you had said in the beginning, where everything's sort of fair game in terms of our responses. I think, we've been through a lot this last year as a Jewish people and as a Jewish community. What happens when we are numb to the pain? What happens when our response is that we're not really feeling anything?
So I guess my answer to that would be, have you always been numb? Like what's your baseline? Or have you become numb after, so much, of what's been going on? Just tonight, one of the girls said to me, I'm numb. Like I haven't cried yet. Like I just feel like I'm numb. And my answer to her was, we're only at day one. And I think that the possibility is that, your mind, your body, your soul, your heart, your emotions are still kind of frozen in shock. And, it may still yet come, and give it a few days. And if not, then call me, So that's my question. My question to the person asking the question would be, what's your baseline? Is it numb since this tragedy, or were you once, an emotional person, and because of the build up of, what's been going on, have you become numb?
Thank you.
Beautiful. Zahava, just thank you so much for sharing your depth of wisdom and experience. Just so many incredible gems that you shared in your brief talk, just chock full of things that were both chizuk and also practical advice that I think that everyone on this Zoom will really be able to benefit from. And I really appreciated your point at the very beginning about how there's no right or wrong way to do this. And it reminded me of there's the 5 stages of grief that maybe some people on the call are familiar with, that there's a different set of feelings that are part of the process. And I just wanted to ask you from your perspective, for people who are familiar with that, or people who are going through all these different feelings that you mentioned, like is it a linear thing? If they don't feel all the feelings, does that mean they're not done? Is it possible to feel like you're done with one, you feel like you're done with anger, but then become angry again? How do people understand this?
So that's a great question. And my answer is that we actually do not go according to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief any longer. Because we have realized, in the world of trauma and grief, and just by the way, like, I just want to clarify, Hashem has put me in a very unique position in this world, where in the last 25 years, I, besides my wonderful family, Baruch Hashem, I've been, intimately involved in all types of crises, traumas, and tragedies, but not as a regular therapist, meaning just, in a very crisis intervention type of way. Like, I'm not a type of therapist where you're going to come to once a week, for counseling for 6 months. But, you know, in a very, you know, my area of expertise and experience is crisis intervention, trauma, and bereavement. But in that world, you know, in the whole world of trauma and grief, what we've learned is that there are no rules. There's no order. There's no Seder. You know what I'm saying? There's no recipe. It's not first A and then B and then C and then D and then E, which is honestly very difficult for some personalities. Some personalities, like, you know, beg me, like, tell me what to do. Like, I need to know what to do and tell me how long it's going to last, you know? But,
Right.
you know, it's not like first, you know, denial and then, you know, shock and then anger and then this, you know, and it's not a linear process. It doesn't go like that. It's not a smooth, you know, it goes up and down, and, you know, somebody can go from shock to denial to anger and then back to shock and then up to acceptance and then back down to anger. And it's such a mishmash of feelings, you know, in 1 hour, you know what I'm saying? Let alone like day by day. And people have to, like, you know, be very much aware of that. And it's a very individual, personal process. You know, as I keep saying, very different for every person. You know, you could have two people who have, you know, a loved one die from the same exact illness, the same exact diagnosis, the same age, the same everything, but, you know, react in totally, totally different ways. So there's no more stages of, you know.
Okay. All right. So we have a bunch of emails. In my inbox, the first one here that just caught my eye is from sounds like a girl who wrote that a friend of Liel told her that her last conversation with Liel was about anxiety, about different things. So the writer, the person who's asking this question, says that she herself often gets anxious about things related to death, dying, and suffering. And this horrific accident has just increased her anxiety, and I'm sure others as well. And she asked to please help us deal with our anxiety as a reaction to this tragedy.
Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to a baseline. I think there's anxiety, and then I think there's anxiety. You know what I'm saying? I think that somebody who is struggling with anxiety that warrants, seeing somebody about that, seeing somebody who kind of focuses on anxiety, perhaps taking some, medication to help control anxiety, which, many people do. And that's fine. That's one type of anxiety. And if that's the case, this type of tragedy is definitely going to exacerbate that anxiety. And I spoke to a couple people, more than a couple, several people between yesterday and today, that whatever it is that they were struggling with, this tragedy exacerbated it. On the way home from Great Neck, I spoke to somebody that was dealing with a particular anxiety, and this tragedy, brought it back up. People who have dealt with, a variety of traumas in the past, this tragedy, brought that back up. So we need to know that whatever is, kind of sitting inside of us, this tragedy is going to be a trigger for it. It's going to kind of like regurgitate it. I know that's not such like a pretty word, but that's going to happen. Okay. So that has to be very clearly understood. And then there are other people who, this tragedy is just going to make them on a little bit more of a basic level nervous about certain things. There were girls yesterday who were nervous to, get back into a car right away, which, may take a couple days. And that, and that's fine, as long as they do after a couple of days, like they can't drag it out, because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to get back into that car. you know, what were some other examples? That was the big one. But with anxiety, that clear distinction has to be made, how long we've been carrying it around and, at what level it is. And I think each person, has to be self-aware in terms of what that means to them.
Thank you. And thank you to the person who sent that email. We do hope you're on the call this evening, so you got to hear that wonderful response.
And it is being recorded, so if anyone didn't get a chance to hear it live, you can always give them the link or set it up that way and forward it. Here is another question. Also sounds like from a girl. It says, I'm so sad and in shock from the situation, but I'm not crying. I'm feeling guilty for not crying, but I'm not so emotional. How do I remove the guilt that I'm feeling?
Okay, so I think we covered that a little bit. And I'll tell you that a girl in Great Neck tonight asked the same exact question. She said, I'm so sad and I'm in so much pain, but I'm not crying. And like, why not? So my answer is on two levels. Number one, like we said, we reiterated, I think a lot, that everyone is different. Everyone reacts differently. And, again, what's your baseline? Not everyone is a crier. And we cannot feel guilty that the person sitting next to me is crying and I'm not, if I'm just not a crier, if I'm not the type of person who cries easily. That's okay. You're sad inside, you express your emotions, differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or alternatively, again, you may still be frozen in shock and your tears kind of may be frozen in your eyes. You know what I'm saying? And, give it another couple days and I'm sure they'll come out. And I've dealt with over the years, many, countless family members literally lost a parent or a sibling or a child. And those tears did not come for days, sometimes weeks even. And they were like, hello, what is wrong with me? Like, I just lost, whatever, a child, a family, a spouse, a parent or whatever. And I'm not crying. But then one day, boom, and out it comes. So I think it's either one or the other, but no guilt.
Okay. I see probably about 3 emails that are all asking the same question, which is, how do we support friends? How do I help my friend who went to Camp Sturberg? How do I help my friend who was a classmate of Liel? What words can I offer to give them emotional support?
Okay, so that's a great question, because I got it from the other side, from the friends, you know what I'm saying, who are like, my friends are doing A, B, and C, and it's like bothering me. So first of all, kind of like I said to the parents, validate, like wherever they're at, that's where you need to be. Don't try to move them, don't try to move them into your place. You need to go into their place. Okay, that's very important. And I think the best thing to do is to be honest, to put it on the table. I care about you so much. I can't imagine how you're feeling losing a friend. I want to be there for you. I need you to kind of, guide me. Okay. I'll tell you the question that I got from the other side tonight is a girl from Great Neck, who, was very close to Liel in terms of the community. I think she's actually a year older than Liel, but very close from the community. They're on the bus together, et cetera, et cetera. And she said to me that in school, she comes to school. I mean, again, it's only day one. We're talking like this, it's been going on for weeks, but I'll say today she came to school and she has all these girls coming over and hugging her. And she's just like, I can't, like, it's making me feel worse. It's like making me cry more. Like, I'm just trying to like get it together to go to class. And like, people are coming over and hugging me, and like, I can't deal with that. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, I would so much rather the friends be like, I love you, I care about you, I can't imagine what you're feeling. You know, I want to be there for you in the way that you need me to be there. You know, if that means, you know, just sitting next to you while you cry, I'm going to do that. If you want me to distract you and like, let's go for a manicure, I'm going to do that. You know, like, you tell me.
That is a beautiful and very insightful tool to teach the girls in general, you know, to be able to say like, what do you need, instead of giving them what they think, because no one knows what to do. And like you said, like, some people want hugs, some people want nothing. And it's just, it really is such an individualized approach. And I think that it's good. We shouldn't be scared to ask, even though it's obviously, it's very scary, because no one knows what to do. And that's a very scary place to be in. Here is a different question, if I can find it. There's so many emails. I found it, and I'm not finding it so fast again. But it was more of a hashkafa question, in the sense of, but touching on what you were saying earlier when you were speaking and giving over your tremendous wisdom of how do we take this pain? Like, why does Hashem do this? How does a person who might be feeling confused, why is there this Hester Panim? Why doesn't Hashem display his godless, you know, visibly, so that we can connect, and that these kind of tragedies make it harder to connect? So how does a girl or a woman or a man or anyone take those feelings of confusion and frustration and these negative feelings, but then channel them into areas of growth, like you were saying with Yitzchak Avinu?
So just to be more specific, why is Hashem hiding himself, and how do we use these opportunities for growth? Is that the question?
Yeah. How do we take these, not understanding why these tragedies happen and the religious confusion that can come around it, and then how do we channel those difficult feelings into growth?
Okay. So if I knew why Hashem, you know, hid himself, then I would be a malach, and I could ask my children. I am certainly not a malach. But I will repeat, you know, what I said earlier. I understand that I don't understand, you know, and that's the way I have come to, you know, approach it, and, you know, kind of like talk to Hashem about it. You know, I understand that I don't understand, but I know, I feel, I believe that you love me, that you love all of your children, and that, you know, everything that you do is for the best, and that you have a plan, you know, and you know, what happened right now, you know, is confusing, is upsetting, is sad, and that's the way we see it, and those are the emotions that we're having, because we're human, and because we don't see the full picture. We don't see it like you do. And, you know, I know that you created us with the capacity for those feelings, you know, and that we are given permission for those feelings. At the end of the day, you know, I'm going to try to bring those feelings back to you. I'm going to try to grow through this nisayon instead of just going through it. I'm going to try to react in a way that's going to make you proud. I'm going to try to use it as a way to get closer to you, to find you, you know, to find your light in this darkness. But I need your help to do that. You know, I can't do this alone. I can't, you know.
Okay. Thank you so much. Can we keep going? We do have a few more questions. How are we doing, Zahava? Can we keep the conversation going?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So someone wrote just a few minutes ago, sent us this email. Everything's feeling so unreal. They feel like they're living in a daze. So I'd imagine you could speak to that in terms of whatever process and stage of grief that is, where someone feels like they're in an alternate reality, struggling to continue to take care of themselves, to eat and drink. How do we keep going, and how do we just keep existing when someone is so, in the depths of bereavement like this?
I have 2 words to say to you in answer to that. Day 1. We're at day 1. And we need to keep reminding ourselves of that. Again, like I stood there and I was like, it's only Monday. Like, it's only Monday. Like, this has been the longest day. Like, I feel like it's been 2 weeks since this tragedy happened. But, again, like I had 10, 15 minutes to talk and I could have said so much more. And part of what I would have said is that, like, it's totally normal at this point to have a loss of appetite, to have, to not be able to sleep well, to have a loss of, to not be able to focus, whether it's in work or in school, to feel like you're in a daze, to still walk around and be like, what? Like, what? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like those close to her, those go to school with her, or, of course, family members, to be surprised that she's not there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're at day 1. She was just buried in Eretz Yisrael a few hours ago. So, it's okay not to be okay at this point still. It's okay not to be okay. And those who are close to her, I applaud you for getting up in the morning and even going to work or going to school and, trying to sit in class, trying to go to, to focus on work, doing what you need to do. And yay, go you. So, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that we have some people who are in a daze and who are having trouble focusing and eating and sleeping, and I'm surprised that's not the majority of us.
And how do we remind ourselves to take care of ourselves? How do we make ourselves a priority when our emotions are overtaking us?
Because we need to be physically healthy in order to become emotionally healthy. We need physical strength in order to get back our emotional strength.
Profound.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question. Like you said, we're on day 1. We're on day 1 right now. Everything is so raw and so fresh, and we're all still reeling. But as we know, time doesn't stop. It keeps going. So, we hate to think about how in a few weeks or a few months that the pain will have faded. And we feel sad about that. Maybe we feel guilty about moving on. And how do we process those feelings as we do move forward and we do move on into life? How can we do that in a way without the guilt or just in a healthy emotional way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the way I explain to kids, when I talk about like the overwhelming pain that we're feeling now, I tell them that, sometimes we cut ourselves so badly that we need stitches, right? And it hurts so much. It hurts like it's never going to stop hurting, right? But what happens every day, it starts to hurt a tiny bit less and a tiny bit less and a tiny bit less, until one day you wake up and it doesn't really hurt so much anymore. But you look down and you scar from your stitches, right? So yeah, like, thank you, Hashem. The pain is going to get better. And some of you here on the Zoom, it's too soon to hear that. And it's too, that's an overwhelming thought, because it is day one and we're in so much pain and we're feeling totally suffocated and debilitated by the pain. But yes, the Ezras Hashem Yisbarach, the pain is going to get better. And it's going to go away for some of us. But we're going to look down at our hands and we're going to see a scar. Because knowing Liel, having her in our life, and losing Liel, that's never going to go away. That's never going to go away. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out a way, and, the community is going to do something, a tag is going to do something, and Sternberg is going to do something, and Great Neck is going to do something. Yes, great. But every person as an individual who felt connected to her is going to figure out a way to keep her in your life, even though she's not here. To keep her here, even though she's not here. To keep that flame, that bonfire, that Liel, burning in your heart. To keep that menorah burning. To help her, Liel, to have her help you connect to Hashem.
Beautiful. Okay, we have one last question. And then after this, Zahava, please share any, closing remarks, anything that you feel that we didn't address today. Before I ask this last question, just again, reminder, please go ahead and download the app, because this we don't want this to end at 10 o'clock when this session is slated to end. We want this conversation to continue, and Meaningful Minute has a lot of additional resources for you available on the app, also on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. Let's keep this conversation going. So our final question. I know there's a girl who's watching right now who is sitting here and who's crying and who's in a lot of pain, and who has no idea how she's going to wake up tomorrow morning and go back to school and live her life as if it's normal, and she feels like she's never going to get past this. Can you please talk directly to her tonight? What would you tell her? Because I know that she's here, and I know there's more than one of them.
So first of all, I'm going to say that you girls are not alone. That I know that you feel that you're alone, that you're crying alone, especially with Zoom, when I can't really see your face and look into your eyes. But you can see my face and know that I am with you, and we're all with you. And number two, I want to tell you that I know that you feel like you are buried under a ton of bricks. That you feel like literally like a ton of bricks has been thrown on top of you yesterday, starting with Motzei Shabbos, but yesterday morning when you got the news. And that, just lying under that ton of bricks, you feel like you can't move and you can't breathe and you can't see anything. And you don't know how you're ever gonna get out from under there. And I know that what I'm about to say, that you don't see how it's ever going to be, but I need you to hear my words, and I need you to just hold on to them. I am giving you permission to right now stay under that ton of bricks, okay? Because right now I know that the pain is debilitating. But I also need you to give yourself permission to believe that what's going to happen over the next couple of days is that you are going to allow people to start removing the bricks one by one. Whether it's parents or friends or teachers, or maybe Liel herself from Shemayim, or your emunah, or your strength, however, whoever, one brick is going to be removed slowly. Maybe one brick day by day, maybe some days 2 bricks, maybe in a few weeks 3 or 4 bricks at a time. Eventually, you're going to start to be able to move a little bit, breathe a little bit, see little bits of light coming in through the cracks that the spaces, that the removal of bricks will allow in. And eventually, more and more bricks are going to be removed, and you'll be able to move around a little more, see more light, be able to function more like yourself. And as more bricks are removed, and as you're functioning more like yourself and breathing more, and allowing more light into your life, allowing more of Liel into your life in a happy memory type of way. And then what's going to happen, girls, is you're going to be left with 1 brick. And that brick is Liel. And you're going to put that brick into your pocket. And some days your pocket is going to feel really heavy. Some days it's going to be so heavy, it's going to wear you down. But some days you're not going to even feel it. It's not going to, it's not going to bother you so much. But it will always be there. That brick is always going to be in your pocket. We all will always be with you. I need you to believe that you're going to get through this process. This is the first day. It's the hardest. It's the hardest.
So we're not letting go of Liel just because we lost her. We're not letting go.
We're not letting go.
Thank
Wow.
you.
And holding on to the pain is not holding on to Liel.
That's very profound. Zahava, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts that you've shared so many amazing thoughts with us tonight? Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share before we close for tonight?
Well, I just want to say, personally, and I've shared this the other times I was on Meaningful Minutes, so I know it's okay. I have a tremendous chus. I know some people, I'm sure, know of Yeshivat Hashem in Farakwe, who sends out Inspiration Daily and Emunah Daily and all those, daily emails. They send out over, I think 17, 18 daily emails to over 40,000 people. So about 4 years ago, they asked me to do one for women. So I do it with, just having in mind that everyone's going through something, trauma with a big T and trauma with a small t. So if anybody would want to receive, it's just a little bit of something to help people get through the day. Just a combination of things from the Torah and things from psychology. So you can get it through email or WhatsApp. You can email soulsisters@yeshivatarashiman.org, soulsisters@yeshivatarashiman.org, or text 516-404-7594, 516-704-7594. As far as closing thoughts, so I want to say the following, that we have all been given a tremendous nisayon. Individually, collectively, we've been given a tremendous nisayon. And what is a nisayon? Nun samach yud vav nun, challenge. In every nisayon is the word nis, right? And part of the nisayon, part of the challenge, is to find the nis. And what is a nis? A nis is not just a miracle, not just finding the way that Hashem is holding us, guiding us, carrying us, but a nis is also a banner. And what is a banner? Something that lifts us. So the first part is validating that this is a challenge. The first part is validating that this is hard. And we spoke about that, about the different ways that this is hard for each of us. But then part of that challenge is to find the ways that Hashem is holding us and carrying us through this. And then to find the ways that this is going to lift us, to change us. You know, those of us who are going to pay a Shiva visit this week, right? We're going to say Hamakom Yinachem Eschem. And the name of Hashem that we use in that pasuk, Hamakom, is a very, rare name of Hashem that is hardly ever used. And I believe that we're not just saying it to the mourners. We're not just saying it to the family. Hamakom Yinachem. Because Hamakom means the place. And every single one of us is mourning. Every single one of us is suffering, right? So it's kind of like Hamakom, whatever place you are in, whatever place Hashem put us in this tragedy, whether we're a friend of Liel's, whether we're a parent of a friend of Liel's, whether we're a teacher, a rabbi, a neighbor, a Hatzalah member, a Meaningful Minute podcast coordinator, whatever place Hashem put us in terms of where we were put in this tragedy, that's the place Hashem wanted us to be. This tragedy was not just for Liel's family. This tragedy is for the community. This tragedy is for the entire Klal Yisrael. That place for us needs to be a nechama. That place needs to be a nechama. And that place is also going to change us. And it's going to lift us and it's going to make us grow. And you know how I know that? Because the word nechama in Parshas Noach is the word that Hashem uses when he decided to change his mind and not destroy the world. Vayinachem Hashem. He changed his mind. It changed him. Hamakom Yinachem. This place that we're in right now, wherever we are, we're a friend, we're a neighbor, we're a parent, we're a teacher, is a comfort to us, is going to give us chizuk, and it's going to change us.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Zahava, for giving us solace and encouragement and guidance as we are going through this together. I want to also thank Meaningful Minute for facilitating this and for making all of this possible. Make sure that you do download the app for continued chizuk and continued conversation on this. And this Zoom was recorded, so you can always go back if you know anyone who wanted to come and was not able to come. You can please feel free to send them the link. And I just want to thank everyone who came here tonight, and just to wish us all the ability to move through this together and to support each other and to take these beautiful words from Zahava and be able to apply them to our lives and the lives of those around us. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.